Happy fall, y'all! My name's Teresa. Welcome to my channel, Sweet Tea Reads, and today I'm going to be doing the philosophy of reading tag. I was tagged a few months ago by Randy Lynn, a fellow booktuber, to do this tag. And I know it's been a while. I have been meaning to put this up. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I had some extra free time today, so I decided to film this video. I hope this video isn't too long. I have a feeling it's going to be long because it's a philosophy tag. These questions are about, you know, philosophy, and everyone knows that I like to talk, so here we go. Question number 1. What's most important, a good character, plot, or message? See, I kind of was looking through these and I was like, I kind of feel like I'm going to be saying the same thing for all days and being like, it depends. So I apologize if this is a boring tag video. I don't really know if I'm a plot or character driven reader. I still have yet to figure this out, even though I've been reading for like my whole life. I think I'm more of a plot driven reader, to be quite honest, but I do like a good character. I never really care about the message, to be frank with you all. That's not something that I go into my books looking for. I mean, if a book has a great message, of course, I'm gonna enjoy that. But it's not like I pick a book up for what it's going to tell me. Sometimes I just want a fun book that doesn't have any meaning behind it. It's just fun, right? So message, definitely not. I would probably say plot, because I do like books with unlikable characters. There are a few books that I have that are unlikable characters. I do like them, so I would probably say plot. Plot is most important to me. And again, well, not again, but let me preface this with saying before I go any farther that all these things are my own personal opinion. I'm not trying to push my opinion on anybody, you know? If you disagree with me, that's completely fine. That's totally cool. Actually, if you disagree with me, I would love to know, because then we could have like a discussion and it'd be really fun. Neighbor dog decided to bark. Oh my gosh. It's difficult for me to film during the day because we got new neighbors and their dog barks all the time. All the time. My own opinions, my own thoughts, not judging anybody that thinks differently of me, and there we go. Number 2, should one read books about ideas or opinions they disagree with? I would say yeah. I mean, let me explain a little bit here, because I don't think you should go into a book knowing you're going to hate it because it has a completely different opinion than you and read it to hate it. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I know I hate this, I will hate this book because what it talks about is something that I hate. But no, I don't think that's productive. I don't think that is helpful. But I do think that, yeah, it is helpful. I mean, part of reading is to learn and to grow, and that's part of why I really love reading, is to learn and to grow and to learn about other cultures, other people, other situations that people go through that maybe I will never experience in my lifetime, but I get to see how other people deal with things. So yeah, I do believe it's important. Is it necessary? No, like, I don't think, I'm not going to shame someone who doesn't want to read books out of their comfort zone, basically. If you're like, I am a starch, I'm trying to think of something that's like not controversial. Like, I'm 100% a cat person. Like, I don't like dogs. I don't want anything to do with dogs. I'm totally a cat person. I only read cat books. If you decide to not read a dog book, that's fine. That's your personal preference. Obviously, this is like, it's more political and stuff, but I think this post is getting out. I'm just trying to think of something non-controversial. Maybe that is controversial. I don't know. But as I'm like I'm saying, if you like know who you are and you know you really like these type of books, then okay, fine, you know, do what you want to do. Like, especially if reading, you read for entertainment. Yeah, but I do think it's important that we do read other books outside of our comfort zone, other books by people who don't look like us, who don't live like us, who are from other countries, other religions, other whatever, because that is how we grow and that is how we learn. And even if you read a book about something that you disagree with, maybe you can have more understanding and more compassion for the person that does believe the way that the author believes. Not saying that you are going to change your opinion by any means, but like recently, I'm a Christian, and I recently read a book that dealt with the Muslim faith, and it was really interesting to me because I don't know much about the Muslim faith, and as I was reading this book, I learned a lot more about the Muslim people and their religion and their faith and kind of why they do certain things that they do, which I found fascinating. And now I can better understand and better empathize, I don't know, with people of the Muslim faith. And yeah, I just thought it was very fascinating to learn about. So yes, I do believe that it is healthy for us to read books that are, you know, things we disagree with. But again, only if you're going into it open-minded. Like, there are certain books that I absolutely know that I staunchly disagree with on like a to my core level, and I just won't read those, because to me it's like, it's not going to help me, I'm just gonna be mad, so why would I read that? But hopefully that makes sense what I'm trying to say, my answer there. Question number 3, as tech advances, what do you think of the role of books? What do you think will be the role of books? Honestly, I think books are probably, I think they're still going to be around. I know when e-readers first came out, there was this huge scare. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, books are going to go obsolete. Books are going to go the way of record players and cassettes, and they're no longer going to be like VHSs, you know, they're no longer going to be made because now we don't have use for them because we have our e-readers. And that was many, many years ago that this happened, and we still have plenty of books. So I think maybe in like an academic setting, I could possibly see books changing, or people going more online, finding articles online, or using online resources, technology resources in academics possibly. But most people I know, well, I don't even know, but like most people, I mean, especially like on Booktube and stuff, who read ebooks also have physical books. So I really don't think that the role of books is going to change much, if ever. I think there are enough people in this world and who will, you know, who love physical books and will instill that love in their children of physical books. Again, like I said, the only thing that maybe I could see the role of books changing would be in academic settings. Maybe they're no longer as heavily relied on for textbooks, but more towards the ease of online. I could be completely off on that. I'm not in school. I haven't been in school in a long time, so I don't know. But that is, just off the top of my head, is the only thing I could see changing. Otherwise, I think the role of books is, they're here to stay, and I am totally okay with that. Question number 4, how important are summaries, reviews, and art in your book choosing? Very important. I would say to me, I know what I like to read in books. And even though everyone always says don't judge a book by its cover, I think as book people, we know books are like the only thing we actually judge by their covers, right? Because like, we're always like, if we see a beautiful cover, that's what draws us to the book, and we want to know more about the book is because of the cover. And if we see a cover that we're like, oh, like, I'm not a romance reader. Like a historical romance reader, I'm not a historical romance reader. And I can tell it looking at a cover of a book if it's going to be a historical romance, and I will know automatically to stay away from that, because I just know I won't like that. Danger has to have his cameo, like always. So yeah, I think, you know, art is very important, because that's the first thing most people see when they look at the book. Especially if you are not someone who is into book media. Like if you're not on Booktube, if you're not listening to podcasts, if you're not on Twitter or TikTok or any of those things that talk about books, the first thing you see when you walk into a bookstore is the cover of the book. So I think the artwork of the book, the cover of the book, is very, very important. It is what draws most people to said book. A decent, accurate summary can make or break a book, in my opinion. Make or break a reason for me to pick up a book, in my opinion. I have read some books that the summary or the blurb on the back, whatever you want to call it, was incredibly, incredibly misleading and made me very much like one of the worst books I've ever read in my life. The synopsis of it, the one that I had read on the back of the specific edition that I had nothing to do with what the book was about, and I hated the book. I hated the book. If I knew what the book was actually about, I never would have picked it up in the beginning, because it was nothing like what I thought. And that was due to the summary. So I do believe that that is very, very important. And I don't know. I just think, to me, you know, that's something that if I don't find the summary interesting, or whatever, or the information about it, I won't pick it up, because why would I read a book that I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna like? So yeah, that's my thoughts on this question. Question number 5, should one ever skim or scan a book? I think, again, like I said, depends. And also, I think a lot of these are personal preference. Personally, I don't necessarily like to skim or scan a book. I mean, unless it's like a textbook or something. Or required reading from high school. There were definitely times that I just looked up the Spark Notes, because I was like, I'm not gonna read that, which I know is bad, but hey. I think that is personal preference. I think if you, well, I wouldn't encourage it by any means. Me personally, no, I don't do that I mean, unless I'm like in a part of a book that like maybe there's a section I know I don't like I personally don't read books that have sexual content in them. If, at least I try not to. If I'm reading a book, it has sexual content, I'll just kind of scan over that, whatever. Other times I will kind of scan pretty quickly forward to get to like the really interesting part. I will skip a couple sentences to get to where I want to go because I'm too excited. That sort of thing. Honestly, I don't think if you're gonna get the same impact, the same results if you skip or scan a book. I mean, this is kind of hard because like, again, it's like, do whatever you want, do what makes you happy, right? It's not like I'm like gatekeeping or whatever, but I would say if you truly want the gist of the book, no, you shouldn't, because I think there are times when it's the little nuances within the book and there's little like things that you might miss if you scan it, like the little tiny details. Sorry guys, my dog unplugged my light, so hopefully I answered that question satisfactorily. Whatever. Okay, question number 6. Should reading always be enjoyable? Depends on what you mean by enjoyable. Like, I never go into a book, I don't read because I dislike reading, right? So I would say, yeah, and it's in the sense of we read for fun. Reading should not be a chore. Reading should not be something that you hate, something that you are dreading. I understand that in school settings, very much there are times where it is a dread to read books, or certain books you just really don't like, but you have to read them because it's required in school. That doesn't necessarily, can be unenjoyable. But I would say, as far as we're talking outside of an academic setting, there are some stories that we read that are not enjoyable. Like, there is this book that I read that was seriously one of the most beautiful stories I've ever read. It's called Rust and Stardust by T. Greenfield, I think. And this book follows a story of a young girl who was kidnapped by this older man, and he did bad things to her. I'm sure you can imagine what those bad things would be if a young man kidnaps a young girl. And it was basically her story of the abuse and the survival and how she dealt with it, and how her family dealt with losing her and all these things. And this was based off a true story. And so while this was not an enjoyable read by any means, because it wasn't like I was having fun reading about this girl's abuse and kidnapping and all of these things, but that book impacted me heavily, and it was beautifully written, it was beautifully done. It's one of the best books I've ever read. But it wasn't enjoyable in the sense of like, I was like, oh, this is so much fun, I enjoy reading about this. I didn't enjoy reading about that topic, but I think it's an important topic to read about. It's important to see, other people's experiences and things. So that's kind of how I would answer this is, yeah, I think reading should be enjoyable. You should read because you enjoy reading. I mean, again, this is outside of an academic setting, right? School, completely different story. But yeah, I mean, I read because I love reading. I read because I love stories. I read because it makes me happy. And so in that sense, yes. Should it be enjoyable? Reading should be enjoyable, yeah, but you don't always read enjoyable stories. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. Question number 7, is it important to be well read? Personally, I would say for myself personally, yes, I think it is important for me to be well read. I think it's important for everyone to be, though I would say that someone who is not well read doesn't make them less of a person, doesn't make them less smart, doesn't make them less accomplished, a less seasoned or whatever, worldly, wise, there we go. I do think that if you can be well read, I think it's only an advantage to you. It lets you see different viewpoints. Like I was saying earlier, you see different viewpoints of people. You can learn about other cultures. You can learn about, I think reading can definitely help shape who you are as a person. And the more well-read you are, I would say the more, well, I don't know, because that's really hard, because I don't want to say like you're more compassionate or you're more understanding or well versed or whatever, because there are people in this world who maybe like they can't read, maybe they grew up in a place where they never learned to read, and I don't want to make it seem like they're any less of a human or any less important, or again, less smart or educated or wise, that's the word wise, because they're not well read. I would say for myself personally, yes, I think it's important for myself to be well read. I find that I have become more understanding of other people's situations through reading. I feel like I am a more well-rounded person through reading. I feel as though reading, it's just such a big part of my life, and it's a very unique medium. Like, yeah, watching movies, listening to stories, that kind of thing is unique as well. But there's something about reading that for me, I just get sucked into these worlds, and I feel like I have all these experiences and different people that I've met, you know, fictional or whatever. But I do think that being well-read is something that greatly benefits me and helps me be a better speaker, even though I know I have trouble speaking. It's a disability thing, you guys. I have a disability that causes my speech to be bleh sometimes. So that's, I know it might be sound a little funny there. You're like, you are not a good speaker because, anyways, but I mean, like, I know words that, you know, I didn't know before because I read. I'm able to I feel like, and this is me personally, I'm not saying that if you're not well read that you can't be this, but this is for me personally, more mature, more eloquent in my speech, especially my writing, because, like, you know, talking, whatever, but like if I'm writing an email or writing something to somebody, I feel like I can be definitely more whatever because I'm well read. I have all of this vocabulary and different things. Okay, let's move on from that question. Question number 8, what is your book buying process? To be honest, I don't buy a lot of books. I mean, I have a lot of books, but I'm not always buying books. And the reason is because I have always had a extremely tight budget. I've never been in a place in my life where I can just go out and buy books willy-nilly. So I can't just go out and, you know, go book shopping once a week, whatever. Like, I would absolutely love to do. But so I think my process is a little different. When I can't afford it, I would say 98% of the time, 99% of the time, to be honest, the books that I'm buying are secondhand. Very, very rarely am I able to buy a brand new book. Secondhand is my process. I go to thrift stores. I go to places like Goodwill, Salvation Army, garage sales. Garage sales are great. I found some great books at garage sales. And I don't really know if I have a process per se. I just go there and I guess, yeah, because I look for books that are, again, the title and the cover, they have to interest me. It draws me in. I will find a book that draws me in, and then I will read the back of it. I will look at the cover. I'll kind of see the genre. I'll see the age range, if you can kind of tell from the book. If it's something that I'm interested in, then I'll check the price. And if the price is not too much, then I'll most likely pick it up. A lot of times when I go to Goodwill and stuff, they have their things where they do, like, every week a different color tag is 50% off. And so a lot of times I'll go and look specifically for those 50% off tags. If it's a book that I really want, but the color is wrong for the week, I put it back and hope that it's still there the week that the color is 50% off. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my process, I guess. Again, I just look for books. If I'm not looking for a specific book, which normally I'm not, normally I'm just browsing the shelves trying to find something that I like. It's just something, if it calls to me, title, cover, synopsis, and it's a decent enough deal, then I will pick it up. Okay, question number 9. What is your reading process? I'm not exactly sure what they mean by this. It's been a while since I've watched anybody else do this tag. My reading process, I don't know if I have one. I mean, maybe I do, but I don't quite understand this question. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really have any way that I specifically, I'm like, I don't like do the same thing every time when I'm reading. A lot of times I read audiobooks, so I'll just pop them on if I'm in the car, or if I'm doing chores or something around the house, I put the audiobook on. Yeah, I don't think I have one. I don't know if I have one. I don't know. Sorry, guys. Question number 10. How do you use what you read? That's a really good question. How do I use what I read? I don't know if I can really answer this, how to answer this question. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I mean, I know, like, that's not necessarily, you can use fiction books, but I guess I would say that I use what I read by being able to be more understanding and compassionate to other people. I can learn through reading, I can learn about other cultures. I mean, a lot of times the books I'm reading are fantasy and thriller. So I don't know how much of that I can really use in my day-to-day life. When it comes to nonfiction, I just use the information when needed. Like if I read, like that book I was telling you about earlier, where I read about the Muslim woman. It's called Undivided by Patricia Briggs and Alana something. I'll put it up. I can't remember her last name. But it's a mother and daughter who wrote this book together. The mother is a Christian, the daughter is a Muslim, and it's just how they are trying to have a relationship as mother and daughter while having very conflicting faiths. And so this book, like I said, was super interesting because I got to learn a lot about the Muslim faith, and I may now have more understanding of Muslim people. If I see someone, you know, we have Muslim people in my, like hijab wearing Muslim people in my my town, my neighborhood, and I might be able to interact with them differently or a little bit understand a little bit more of why they do what they do, what they believe, that kind of thing. I don't know. Is that an answer to the question? I don't know. Ooh, okay. Number 11. If you could download a book to your brain, would you still read? That's a very interesting question. Would I still read? I think this is a very interesting question because I have a cognitive issue that makes it difficult for me to read physical books. Audiobooks I have no problem with, but physically reading a book is difficult for me to comprehend. But I think I would still say yes, because I enjoy the process. I enjoy the process of getting from beginning to end. I enjoy being immersed in the story. Like having it downloaded to your brain, I mean, I don't know if they mean like you can like have it read to you or something, or just like, I'm assuming you just automatically know the whole story. Like boom, like you don't go through the process of it. You just know the story. It's in your brain. That would be great when it comes to textbooks and things for school. But as far as reading, like I enjoy the process of reading. I like trying to figure out the mystery. I like trying to guess and see where these characters are going, what's their motivation, what does the author have in the end, the twists and turns that like make me gasp or make me be like, what the heck? I enjoy that. That's part of why I love reading. So even though I would have it downloaded, I would still 100% read because like I said, I just enjoy the process. Question number 12, what are your views on, rereading. I thought I said reading. I was like, what? Rereading a book. I have no issue with it. Again, this is one of those things that I'm like, it's up to you. If you want to reread a book, fine. If you don't, fine. I don't care. As far as my own personal preference on rereading, I like to reread books. I find it interesting because there are, like I said, a lot of the books I read are thrillers. And so even though I know some people don't like to reread their thrillers because like, I already know the ending, why would I reread it? But I have found there are a lot of times when you reread a book, a thriller or a mystery or anything like that, that you will see foreshadowing. You will see things that you didn't catch the first time around. And I love that. I love being able to go back into a story. Like one I can think of off the top of my head right now is Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I read that book, 5 stars, amazing. It was like favorite of the year I read it. I think that was 2020 or something. Loved that book. I had my sister read it and we were listening to it on audio because I really think the audiobook of that is fantastic. And I was in the car with her as we were listening to the first few chapters and I was like, oh my gosh, there's totally like in the very, very beginning, there's like foreshadowing and innuendo into what happens at the very, very end. I like, obviously you don't catch that in the beginning, but I thought it was brilliant and fascinating how the author was able to put that in the beginning and then it ends up being the same, like something that happens in the end. I just found that so much fun. So I do really like that. I also love rereading my favorite stories. I really like to be re-immersed into these worlds that I love. I don't reread very often just because there are so many books in this world, you guys. So many books that I want to read that I will never complete in my lifetime. All of the books that I want to read because, you know, there's always new books coming out. So yeah, but I do like rereading my favorites. It's a nostalgia thing. It's being able to kind of feeling like you're back with your favorite characters. Like kind of like if people watch reruns of their favorite shows, right? It's kind of the same thing for me with rereading. You're back in it and like, yeah, you already know what happens, but that's not the point. The point is to be with these characters again, be in this story again, go to this world again. And a lot of times I will get new things out of the story. I will see things that I never saw before or realized before. And I always, you know, and then when you're older, too, and maybe a different place in your life, sometimes you can get a different perspective on what you're reading. And so I love that it's constantly changing. Even though the story is the same, your perception of the story is not necessarily always the same. Question number 13, what makes a good book? Again, this is totally, depends on the person, depends on what you like. Subjective to the person answering the question. For me, what makes a good book is something that keeps me that can keep me engaged, something that keeps me wanting to turn the page. And I've definitely read slow-paced books, so it's not saying like they have to be fast-paced. They can be slow-paced, but it has to draw me into the story. It has to make me constantly be wanting to know more, wanting to know what's next. Very much show, not tell, for sure. I would rather have something be described to me, be shown to me, than just straight up told to me. But it also has to get to the point. There are some books that I've read that I'm like, oh my gosh, you've taken this whole chunk this big, could have been like squished down into one sentence and it would have been perfectly fine and I would have got it and moved on. You know, so I think you kind of have to find that balance between being able to show instead of tell, but not go so far that you're just like over describing, over explaining thing. Like that can definitely get on my nerves. It's really hard to say, you know, what makes a good book, because even within myself, there are things that like maybe two books are extremely similar and I only like one versus the other. You know, it doesn't have to have good characters. It has to have, I wouldn't say it has to have relatable characters, but it has to have characters that I can see being real. Even if it's like an alien or something, you know, I have to imagine that this is real in the world that this book is set. Does that make sense? I don't really know how to articulate what I'm trying to say. But if the character doesn't feel like it fits in the story, if the character doesn't feel like it fits within this world, that can definitely bother me. Again, it doesn't have to be a likable character. It can be a very unlikable character, but if their story fits in what they believe, what they do, fits within this world, I think that is good. Oh, and then question number 14 is what makes a bad book. I've kind of already talked about that a little bit. Pacing definitely. If it's too fast-paced, too slow-paced. And this, I can't say like there's a happy medium, you know, I mean there is, but it depends on the story. Like some books are better written as slow-paced books. Some books are better written as fast-paced books, and the story itself wouldn't work any other way. So this is like a book-by-book case. I can't just say all books have to be fast-paced, because again, like I said, there are some slow-paced books that I really enjoy. So it's definitely a book-by-book case. What works for that story? What works for the author's type of storytelling? And what works for me as a reader, because a book that I may love, someone else may hate, and vice versa, because what works for me doesn't work for them. So bad book to me, I mean, I guess if we're seeing more of like the technical things, improper grammar or poor editing can definitely make a bad book. Indie publishers is a little different because obviously they don't necessarily have the resources and the means to get their books edited and read and kind of work out the kinks. I mean, I've seen traditionally published books that have some kinks in them, but just really over describing, like I said earlier, over descriptive things where you're just, it's like you're putting in words to put in words to make your word count bigger. I don't think that's a good, I don't think that's good. I don't like that. Also being too like brushing over something that, you know, needs to have more time looked at, that I think that the needs to be flushed out more. Like say if there's a death, like I've heard Elliot Brooks talk about this, how sometimes there's like a death, a character death, or is it Elliot Brooks or Murphy Napier? Maybe they both have talked about this. Murphy Napier. Where there's like a character death, but then like the crew just moves on like no big deal, like it never affected them. It's like, what? No, you have to have it affect them because it's like an important scene in this book, you know? So I don't know. A bad book is just, again, subjective to the book, to the person. But I guess that's what I would say, you know, poorly written, poor grammar, too short, not enough description, too much description. I mean, again, it's so hard to like give a pinpoint answer to these. because I don't think there really is a pinpoint answer. Question number 15, how do you feel about not finishing a book? It bothers me. Again, this is personal opinion. I don't care what you guys do. If you want DNF all day long, that's totally your prerogative. Do it. I personally I struggle with DNFing. I really struggle with DNFing because there is always that part of me that wants to know what happens. I need to know. I need to know how this book ends. Even if I hate it, even if I despise it, I need to know what happens. Like, where do these people go? Where does this story go? You know, what happens in the end? And it's so difficult for me to just be like, okay, I don't like it. I'm not enjoying it. It can go. It's not for me. I've done it a few times, but there's a book that I'm thinking of that I have DNF that I still occasionally am like, should I go back and reread it? Should I try it again? Because I need to know what happens at the end. It bugs me. This is like my own personal quirk thing. So it's very hard for me to not finish a book. And it's just because of that. Like, one, I don't like to give up on things. And again, personal. I'm not saying if you DNF books that you're a quitter. Like, I think you actually have more power to people who can DNF because I have struggled with it. But I don't like to give it up, and I'm always thinking in the back of my head, like, not only what happens, but what if I end up liking it? What if there's a thing in here that all of a sudden the book turns around and I completely love it? Usually that does not happen, but what if it does? Yeah, that I struggle. Question number 16, should the author's personal life matter at all? This is a hard one for me to answer. You know, it's definitely the whole separating the art from the artist situation. A lot of times I don't look at I'm able to separate art from artist. I think when I'm not able to, or when it affects me personally, is when the author's personal views, if I disagree with them, or if they are like not cool, like if they're anti-Semitic or something, and that view, or racist or whatever, in any way, that viewpoint comes through in their book, and you can tell that that is what the author believes by how they're writing. Because like sometimes you will have like a racist character, but it doesn't mean the author is racist, right? It's just that is that character, and it's not shown as a good thing. But then you will have authors who kind of sneak that in, that is their personal beliefs. Then yeah, at that point, yeah, I do think that it's important, because I don't need to be reading about that. I disagree. And I think that we shouldn't be supporting people who feel that way, right? As far as other stuff, I mean, like personal beliefs though, it's really hard to say, because if they don't let their personal beliefs affect their writing, is that possible that you can even do that? I don't know. But if it's not reflected in their writing, like if their writing has nothing to do with their personal beliefs, or their story they're telling has nothing to do with it, most of the time I would say I can look over it. Sometimes I think that the one things I think that would be for me is like, if you are convicted of a sex crime, if you are convicted murderer, if you are convicted, you know, like if you are actually like a proven to be a very bad person, probably I'm not going to want to pick up your books, because I don't want to support you in that sense, if that makes sense. But as far as just not being very nice, or kind of having opposing views to myself or whatever, normally I can overlook it. Normally I can kind of be like, yeah, like the author might be a horrible person, but they write good books. Like there are some actors that they're horrible people, but they're great actors and they make really good movies. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Question number 17. If you could only read one genre for the rest of time, what would it be? That is not fair. Sorry if you can hear the neighbor dog barking, you guys. I don't know if that's picking up well on camera, but it's driving me crazy. I'd probably say fantasy. And I say this because fantasy, you can have so many different things within fantasy, right? You can have high fantasy, you can have urban fantasy, you can have magical realism. Is that considered fantasy? I don't know. But you can have made up worlds, you can have Earth, you can have just a million different things that you can do in fantasy. And I mean, it would suck to only be able to read one genre, because I really like things like thrillers and stuff. But I think thrillers, there's only so much you can do with a thriller. And if I had to read thrillers for the rest of my life, I don't know, because also most of the time thrillers are dark. Thrillers are... The neighbor dog has literally been barking for the past like 5 minutes straight, because the other neighbor's out in their yard and the neighbor dog doesn't like it. I'm at this dilemma, guys. Do I go talk to the owners and tell them, hey, your dog barks like 24/7 when you're not home? Or is that me being a bad neighbor? Like, it's a dog. Dogs bark, right? But this dog, guys, nonstop. And it's when they're not home. When they're home, they don't let it bark. So, I don't know. Let me know what you would do. I don't want to be a jerk neighbor, right? But at the same time, it's obvious this dog is stressed out. That's why it's barking all the time. And I don't know if the people know the dog does it. It's one thing if they know and they just don't care. It's another thing if they honestly don't know. Can you hear it though? It's just nonstop. Nonstop. And it's hard to get anything done with this dog barking in the background. And my dog is great. My dog's amazing. Let me show you my dog. Hey, he's being a very good boy. Right, Ranger? You're being a very good boy. He just sits and watches. No big deal. No big deal. It's just one of their dogs. They have two. The other one doesn't ever hardly bark. Unless there's actually something going on. But there's usually not. Okay. Let's get back into it. What I was just saying about thrillers. I can finally calm down. Thrillers. Yeah, because, I mean, they're dark, right? And I don't need that kind of darkness in my life all the time. While I do enjoy reading them, I do enjoy the spooky, kind of darker books. Every now and then, I need something to lighten up the situation, right? I don't want to always be in that headspace. So I would have to say fantasy, because you can. There is dark fantasy, and there's super fun fantasy. So I'd say fantasy. I think that definitely it gives me more options, more ability to kind of have different feels and stuff than a thriller. Okay. Question 18, do you ever read a book without knowing anything about it? Very rarely. Very rarely. I don't necessarily like to know a whole lot about books going into them, especially, again, mystery thrillers, because it's easy to get spoiled for them. Even sometimes the synopsis can, like, be spoilery. So, do I like to know? I mean, I like to usually know a little bit about it. If nothing else, genre, right? Because I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And even though sometimes I do read out of my genre, I do read out of my comfort zone, for the most part, I prefer certain books. And I know for a fact I dislike certain books. And so I need to at least know that. A lot of times you can tell by looking at the cover of the book, the name of the book. Very, very rarely will I look at a book, know nothing about it, and pick it up. That's just not something I like to do, because I don't like to waste my time, because I have trouble DNFing. And I don't want to be reading books I don't like, because I feel like it's just going to be a waste of time and I'm going to be mad. So I always like to know a little bit. I mean, bare minimum the genre. But usually even within the genre, I'm like, okay, a little bit about it. Like, is it, you know, does it have certain tropes in it that I like or don't like? Or, you know, I at least like to read a little bit of the synopsis, even if it's just a little blurby thing. I usually like to know at least that much. So it's very rare that I will go into a book not knowing about anything about it. Number 19, what author, genre, series, or culture can you just not get into, and why? So, author, I don't think there's been an author that I've read that I'm like, I just can't get into that author, because, like I said, I know what I like, I know what I don't like. And so a lot of books that I read, I enjoy them. Very rarely do I read a book that I don't like. I mean, there are some books that are just okay, but like very rarely do I read like a 1-star book. Very rarely do I read a 2-star book. Which maybe that just means I don't go out of my comfort zone enough, or I don't know. But genre, I would say genre for sure, contemporary and romance. I just don't like them. I don't. I have tried. I've never read a straight up, that's a lie. I have actually read a straight up romance book once. One time. Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I read that. Almost DNF'd it because of the sexual stuff in it. Almost did. Glad I didn't though, because the message was amazing. But yeah, that was hard for me to read. I just don't like it. I've read romantic suspense. I read romantic fantasy. Don't like the romance part. So I just don't. Contemporary. It just doesn't interest me. I don't really have a why. I just need something more to my story. Like, I've read a few books in September, or actually recently, I think it was maybe both in September, or one in August, one in September, anyways, that were definitely more contemporary with a fantasy element in them. I did not like the contemporary parts. I like the fantasy parts, but not the contemporary parts. So I'm like, yeah, that just kind of solidifies in my mind that I'm just not a fan of contemporary. I need something more. I need a murder. I need a fantastical element. I just don't want to read about people just going about their day-to-day life, because that's not interesting to me. I need something to take me out of my real life, you know? So just contemporary is just not a fan. Romance, I don't know, you guys. I just am not, I'm not the most lovey-dovey person. I don't know. It's just not something that I enjoy reading. I prefer more action. I prefer more stakes, I guess, in my books. Not saying that I don't have, like, I don't like love, or I don't have love in my books. Sorry, my eye's freaking out. I just, it's not something that interests me. It's not something that I find enjoyable. It just, I don't know. I really don't know why. I've never been a fan of romance, ever, in my books. I don't mind, like, rom-coms and romantic dramas and stuff, but when it comes to my books, no, thank you. I'm good. Culture, not really. I think a lot, I mean, I guess one culture, I guess you could say, is like Asian culture has never really been something that interests me a whole lot. I have read some really good books that are Asian inspired, like fantasies and stuff. Nothing against the Asian culture at all. It's just I'm personally not that drawn to it, not that interested in it, like mangas and stuff like that. I'm just not that interested in it. That's just my personal preference, you know. I actually prefer, when it comes to other cultures other than my own, my favorite cultures to read about are Native American or Indigenous, and like Greek, Egyptian, like ancient Greece, ancient Egyptian, or like First Peoples, First Nations, like I said, that kind of stuff. Hispanic culture I find super fascinating. Latin, culture I find super fascinating. So it's not that I dislike it, it's just not my favorite, and I'm not necessarily drawn to the Asian culture, which I don't want it to sound like a bad thing, like I'm against it, because I'm not against it. It's just not my favorite thing to read about. Though I have read some really good Asian inspired fantasies, I'm just not, that's not my go-to. And then as far as series, yeah, what was that series? Folk of the Air, the Cruel Prince series? No, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I read them all. I was just like, can't get into that. And then the very last one, number 20. Do you think everyone should read, and why? Yeah, of course I think everyone should read. I think reading is such an important part of the human experience. Now, do I think that, like I said before, I don't think reading should be pushed on people. I think you should only read if you enjoy reading. But I do think there's a book for everybody. I really do. And so I think everyone, if given the opportunity of finding the right format, because some people, ebooks, physical books, audiobooks are better for them. But I think everyone should read. Yeah, I really do. I find so much joy in reading. I get so much peace from reading. Is how I unwind. I learn so much. I mean, even if you're a nonfiction reader, you know, like you just learn about things. But even fiction, I learn a lot from fiction. You learn about other cultures, other people. I mean, even just learning about how people think and their thought processes, and you get into the mind of the author. And I think it's fascinating and it's fun. And, you know, yeah, I wish everybody would read. I really do. I think this world would be a much better place if people would read. And I think, you know, reading could keep some people out of trouble if you're more of a reader than going out on the streets and having trouble, you know? Does that make sense? I don't know. You're in the way. You're in the way. I think I just swallowed dog hair. That's disgusting. But yeah, I really wish everyone would read. I think everyone should read. At least everyone should give it a try. Again, try and find your genre. Try and find your format that you like. I mean, of course I'm going to say yes, because I am a reader. I have a book channel. But no, truly, I truly think that there's a book for everybody. I truly think every single person in this world can benefit from reading. I don't know about like scientific studies. I'm sure there are studies that show, like, I've seen things that are like readers are smarter, or readers are more, well, whatever, you know, more compassionate or whatever. Whether or not that's actually scientifically true, I don't know. I'm sure there are some things that are. So even for that aspect alone, I think it's good. But as far as, you know, just, I don't know. I just love reading, so I think you should too. And if you don't, I'm really sorry for you. You just haven't found your right book yet. So anyways, guys, that's my tag. That is the philosophy, the reading philosophy tag, philosophy reading tag. I can't remember exactly what this is called. So sorry if you can still hear that dog barking in the background. He's driving me a bit batty. Like, I'm not mad at it. I just kind of feel sorry for it because it's, you know, I'm guessing, I know the guy works, the dad or the husband. I haven't really met them yet. Works. I don't know if his spouse works. She's just not at home a lot, so I don't know. But yeah, sorry if you can hear that in the background. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have not done this tag yet and would like to, I tag you. Thank you so much, Randy, for. Do you go by just Randy or is it Randy Lynn? I can't remember. I'm so sorry if I. Yeah, let me know if you are cool with Randy or if you're always Randy Lynn. I can't remember, so sorry about that. But thank you to you for tagging me. I appreciate it. This was fun and it did make me think, and now I need chocolate. So some of these questions were like, wow, I really have to think kind of hard about it. Hey, can you get out of my camera? Thank you. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Again, if you would like to do this tag, please do. Please let me know if you do it so I can go watch your video. If you have answers to these questions, don't want to do a video, you can leave those in the comments. I would love to talk to you guys if you have maybe a different opinion than me on some things. I would love to hear about your opinions. I'd love to have a discussion with you all and kind of, you know, see what you guys have to say. So thank you so much for watching. Please give us a thumbs up if you liked it, and do subscribe if you would like, if you haven't done so already. It would really help me out a lot with me growing my channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know what I should do about that barking dog, if I should let the owners know or not. Because again, I don't want to be that crappy neighbor, but at the same time, they're kind of being crappy neighbors. So I don't know what to do. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye, guys.